So I've got the lights working. Ooh, that's what happens when you flip only the lights. Let's merge them down, because I think they work well. If I wanted to, I could knock, since they're all in a layer after all, I can still play with them. I can knock them down, you know, I can turn them off, but they're working from this level, right? They seem to be working. So let's drop it, and let's work on the, just because of it. So here's, you just paint it in your lights. Let's erase out the darks, and then you're kind of set. Let's erase that out. Erase that out. So there you go. It's blocked in, light originating here, casting up, and hitting that surface. Let's add a little bit more detail to it. It looks under detailed. And there you go. Drop it when you're done. A few of these, especially back here, these are it's starting to bug me. These are a little bit too simple. Even though they're way at the end, we got to bring them up, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on them, so let's just make them look really far away. Now, at some point, a composition like this gets, we've got a strong 1 point, we've got very strong verticals. It's pretty relentlessly rectilinear though. You've got a lot of strong verticals. This is helping a lot, this diagonal here. It's not fighting against your 1 point perspective too much, but we need to get some soft shapes in here, and one good way to do that, and it's not a bad trick. It's a little cheap, but any good director uses it. You get some smoke into the scene. You smoke the set basically. It lets you play with hard edges and soft edges, and that's I mean, really, you know, all the best illustrators dealt with that on some level at least. So call up a new layer. Of course, only use smoke where appropriate. It's not necessarily the city burning down, but just some kind of an indication of a technological level of, you know, technology using smoke basically, or you know, it's a steam, it's air conditioning ducts blowing off or whatever. You don't have to worry about it, but it's on a layer. And okay, this area is fine actually. I won't mess with it too much. Let's get a little bit of smoke drifting across. That's just gonna separate our layers a little bit and knock down our buildings. I'm not too happy with a lot of these distant buildings and bridges, but see, just like doing that, it's just a block in, and then you can go in and erase what's in the foreground. You haven't really, you know, all that detail. Even if you'd spent a lot of time detailing it, it's still in there. But you're almost expressing a confidence that you're more interested in the, you know, the atmospheric reality of this thing than your tight industrial design. So that's a good thing in a lot of cases. So this one is in front of that bridge because it's going in front. This smoke plume is in back of that bridge since I erased the bridge out from behind it. So it livens it up a little bit, and it makes sure that not every line has the exact same line weight. Let's see. There's a few things. We're coming into the home stretch here, kind of. It's time to step back and evaluate the painting. What was the intent of the painting? The intent of the painting was to paint a mood, to show some kind of this unique architectural situation, and to make an interesting scenario for whatever activity is going to be happening next. This is like a master shot, an establishing shot in a film. It's kind of generic. It's showing you where you are. It's showing you what things look like. It's showing you the geography of the place. But that being said, it's time to consider it as less of a portrait. Well, actually more of a portrait and less of just a generic shot of something. So it's time to subjectify this painting. So how we do that is you're going to add a human element into that. You're going to add some context. The lights going on helped a little bit. I mean, on one level, it read as kind of a decrepit, sophisticated but uninhabited city. Now putting the lights on, okay, we're starting to see some stuff happen. what we're going to do right now is populating it. And I like to do this at the very end because, I mean, it's usually the way a master shot or an establishing shot looks in a movie anyway. You've got a little payoff of a character or some movement in the background of a matte painting anyway. And the shot is basically about the environment anyway. So let's keep the editorializing and humanizing for another painting, basically. First thing I'm going to do is to see how this foreground situation interacts with everything else. Right now I think there's enough separation, well maybe not quite enough separation between foreground and middle ground right here. So that's just step one, is going to be, as I do when I find that happening, I'm going to separate it out. I'm going to work on this corner right here. So let's get this building to look a little more interesting. It's still a little scribbly, scratchy. So let's put it here. Let's make it obviously overlap what's behind it, which what we just did, and let's pick from within that lit area to see that some of this architecture is being lit by those lights. Okay, so working back to front, that's the back. Now let's decide what this thing is. Let's put some figures here, since that was kind of, this is your, it's kind of your no-brainer payoff. Right here we've got compositionally split into thirds. This is one, section, a middle section, and a left section. It's very no-brainer to keep the visual payoff near the vanishing point, and it's something that I do all the time. It's very effective. It works great usually. And this isn't much of a payoff. It's just two guys, but it's making sure that we see those two guys. If I put these two guys, on a platform over here or something, they get lost in the background. I saved a little space just in the back of my mind, like, let's make this, I don't know if it's a romantic evening or two guys are just hanging out there, but it just kind of gives you some context to this whole thing. So, since it's going to have its own lighting situation here, as I do, select it all, copy, paste it, and we'll zoom in, do our calibration thing. Can barely see through here. Okay, get it to line up, bring it back up, using the arrow keys to register it. Okay, so now I've got this area. So we've got a cool light next to it. We'll make this a really, really warm area, warmer than anything else. This is kind of neutral warm, neutral cool. Let's make this actively warm, but lit internally, so it's not, we're not making the sun take care of its lit. It's still, it's in shadows, but it's lit internally. So we can get, with artificial lighting, you can get much more expressionistic. Since it's on a layer, let's just start playing with it. I'm not sure what I want it to look like yet, but let's just get it to show up. Again, we could do this step right here. We just need to get it to show up. If we get your eye to look there and it integrates and it doesn't detract, then we're successful. I think that's working, but we need to make it more complex than just that one color. We'll start to pick other colors and work them in. This might be a good excuse to do a material indication too, since everything is kind of a matte surface thing. Let's make this high gloss, and where it's a lot about reflections. So this thing, whatever's happening down here, it's going to be reflected up here as well. And remember, I just talked about, these colors are a little theatrical, we'll say, but I just talked about how we arrived at them. It's to get this area to kind of pop out. We could have left it black and it would have read just fine, but let's continue on. Let's make this work. So again, erasing out. We're only getting the gross color mixing choices here right now. Take it down a little bit. It's a little out of hand. Well, it's fine. Let's go for it. Drop that. Flip it. Now, does it work still? Well, it looks like they're in a furnace or something. We'll take that down. make it look more like friendly lighting, friendly but dramatic lighting. Draw these guys back in here. And again, this is a shiny surface, so we can go in here and sense, let's call this almost a warm chrome or something. We can start to pick color from the environment on a layer, of course, that's a good idea. And we can start to paint in those reflections. Got to come up with some kind of architecture here. Some kind of an statues are neat. Eagle statue or something. You know, always to the horizon line here. Let's make sure this works horizon line wise. And let's put a bunch of more people.